Welcome to another amazing episode of Health Up with your host, Anthony Harcher. Health Up seeks to inspire and enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. And today we are blessed to have with us life coach and NLP master coach, Sonya Furlong. Sonya specializes in helping people become the best versions of themselves using mindset techniques, and that includes NLP as one of those techniques. Today she'll be imparting her wisdom on how to manage emotional binge eating. So welcome, Sonya. How are you?
I'm great, Anthony. Thank you for having me here.
Our pleasure. I'm so glad you can join us. I really appreciate you putting aside the time.
My pleasure.
Just, for the viewers and listeners, really keen to understand how you come to becoming a life coach and a master practitioner of NLP, just your journey. It's, really nice to associate with someone's journey as to where they've arrived today. Yeah.
Sure. Did I just cut my sound out? Sorry. I was always teaching yoga and meditation. And I worked in the film industry for 15 years. That was very stressful. Then I worked as an event manager for 5 years, and that was really full on. And, but I had the meditation and the yoga, which was just such a beautiful way to heal myself and also heal and help others. And then, I got to a point where it's like, okay, I really want to make a difference in the lives of others. I want a business where I work on my terms, my values, my time, work with people I like to work with. So I really wanted to have my own business. So I had the yoga and meditation, and I thought, I need something else to round out my business. So I had been to life coaches in the past, and they had been amazing for me. So I studied life coaching, and that was totally transformational. Just learning it, you're learning to help others, but you get so much help for yourself as well at the same time. Mm-hmm. So then I started becoming a life coach, and then I also became a trainer. And that was, again, I had no idea how transformative that would be to become a trainer of NLP and matrix therapies. And so now I run my own business, the Centre for Life Therapies, running trainings and seeing clients. I'm also the New South Wales state trainer for the Life Coaching College. So I love doing all the trainings. And we just had our first live training on the weekend after all the lockdown. So it was really awesome to be back in the room training new coaches. So it was exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can really feel your passion for what you do. And I've certainly heard many stories, success stories of how you've helped others. So it's really nice that you found your passion.
Yes. It's lovely to find my calling. It took a long time in life to find it, but it's like, yes, I found it. It makes such a difference.
At least you're there now, which is
I'm
great.
there now, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I always joke, I will do this forever. Like, I'll drop dead, I'll come back, I'll do it again.
Nice.
I just love it.
Nice. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's you can tell you're in that zone when you when you can make that sort of statement. So just, in my introduction, I mentioned NLP, and you spoke about NLP. There'll be people out there that are not, aware of what that acronym is, or
yes.
So can you tell us what it stands for, NLP?
Absolutely.
And how it works?
Absolutely. So NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and it was created by a small group of people. Mostly two gentlemen are famous for creating NLP, John Grinder and Richard Bandler, and they studied the greatest therapists of their time. So it was the 1970s, and sorry, I'm going to sneeze. And they studied the greatest psychiatrist of the time, the greatest psychologists of their time, and the greatest therapists of their time. And by studying what these great therapists did and breaking down what they did into components of patterns that can be repeated, they found that they were able to install those processes and techniques and train themselves in those techniques and get really fast results. So where traditional therapy, because it wasn't sort of broken down into these components that can be repeated, it could take 10 years to get a result. So traditionally, it took 10 years to help someone with depression, which is a really long time to be depressed, and getting therapy for it. Through NLP, through taking the best of the best and it's like boiling it down into its essence and then repeating that, they could get the same result in just a few sessions. And like a spider phobia, for example, which used to take 5 to 7 years of therapy to overcome, they could do it in one session. So that's what NLP is. It's taken the best of the greatest thinking minds in psychology and psychiatry and sort of brought it down into its absolute essence to get the same result, but really quickly.
That's fantastic, because at the end of the day, people don't want to spend hours of their time, doing therapy sessions. They'd much rather get, get in a short period and save a lot of money in the process as well.
Save a lot of money, yes, and be able to heal incredible, childhood trauma and so many horrendous things that people go through in their life. They can start to feel relief in a matter of months rather than years.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
so really keen to apply this and help my listeners and viewers in relation to emotional binge eating. As a nutritionist, I constantly come up against this when, taking a consult and hearing about, what a person does during the day. And, they generally say, like, in the evenings is when they're very prone and susceptible to binge eating, and they just don't know what's driving it. It's just like autopilot. And so really keen for you to give us some insight as to what's going on with their thinking and what can be done about it.
Yes, great question. And it's a big topic, and there's a few things. And if I could share my screen, I will show you the NLP communication model, which, there's a lot going on. Number one, we have to think as well about the way habits get wired into our consciousness. So, especially where there's extreme emotion and extreme pleasure. So, often the first time we binge, and it often comes when people have been like dieting or kind of going without or starving themselves or something, also people use it as an emotional comfort. Yes. So, it's, they've created this habit at some point in their life, can be from when they're a child or can be when they're an adult, but at some point food became this pleasure crutch. Yeah. And what happens in the brain is when there's strong emotion and there's a repetitive behavior, it becomes very quickly wired as a habit. And when something is a habit, it's literally wired in the brain. And the brain, I've got this video that actually shows how these habits form, and you've got these neural pathways in your mind, like between the neurons, there's these little neural pathways that join, right? And then when it's a habit, it gets really thick, and then this myelin sheathing comes over it, which is this sort of fatty protein substance, so it makes it even stronger. So this habit becomes this absolute superhighway. And the reason the brain does it is because the brain thinks, okay, well, this person is repeating that thought process. Let's make it easy for them and make it really quick for them, So it becomes very difficult to break. So we got to realize that it's, we've got all this strong wiring in our brain that is keeping us on this behavior that is totally sabotaging and totally in conflict with what we want to do. Yeah. Like we did it at some point in our life, we did it because we wanted to, but then the brain took that as a cue to wire it in. And now we're doing it even when we don't want to. And it's very hard to break. And so
just thinking, Sonya, it could be very much that scenario as a kid, whether your parents or grandparents, you know, when you're upset or emotional, they said, you know, here, Johnny, here's an ice cream, or here's a lolly. This will make you feel better.
100%.
Thinking that, yeah.
100%. And it's strong emotion with a reward. Yeah. So this, and whenever there's strong emotion, it gets wired very quickly in the brain. So we've got this wiring that we have to deal with, and it creates, and so here in the NLP communication model, so what happens then is, say we've got this, the external event is, and this can be interpreted in many different ways, but I'm just going to make it specific to food. So say we have this thing, okay, whenever I was a kid and my grandma gave me an ice cream, right? So now ice cream has this huge meaning to me, that if whenever I'm down, I eat a tub of ice cream, right? So the ice cream could be the external event, and it's just totally neutral. It's just a tub of ice cream, right? But but what happens is that it comes in, this information comes in through our senses, and then we filter it and we delete, distort, and generalize, and it creates an internal representation. So what is just a tub of ice cream in someone's head, it could be this overwhelming desire to self-soothe. It's like life or death. I will get up in the middle of the night and drive to a 7-Eleven and buy this ice cream. I need it now, and it's,
must have it.
I must have it, and I cannot rest until I have it, right? It's so in our head, this internal representation, it's huge, right? And so that, of course, affects our state. It affects our mood. It makes us feel, could be desperate, frustrated. The craving of it is huge. And there could be a whole lot of negative emotions in there as well, because that inner conflict, and that there could be all kinds of negative feelings of self-loathing, like I don't want to do this, but it's like it's so good, I can't see it, when you've got that desire, it's overwhelming, and you cannot see any other way of getting through it except for to go get that ice cream. So that affects our physiology, our body, and then it affects our behavior. Off we go, we drive out in the middle of the night, we get the ice cream, and then we sit on the couch and we eat the whole tub. And then, of course, we feel really bad about ourselves, right? And then around and round it goes. Okay, so what we want to do, so this is kind of what's going on in our head. So what we want to do is change this internal representation. So people may ask, well, what is an internal representation? So if you right now, Anthony, and anyone listening, if you think of your absolutely favorite food, pick one thing that you absolutely love.
I love my dark chocolate.
Your dark chocolate, good. Okay. I was thinking, oh, Anthony's a nutritionist. He'll probably say kale.
No, I don't have desires for kale.
Good. Dark chocolate, good. I can relate to that. All right, so close your eyes. Think of that, the dark chocolate. Think of the smell. It smells so beautiful. Think of the texture on the tongue and the mouth. Think of how good it tastes, and how all that cocoa's got all that positive, what's it got in it that's actually really good for you? It's got all those good things that actually make you feel good. So feel how when you eat that dark chocolate, how it actually makes you feel really good. So that is an internal representation, and your internal representation is yours. Like when I think of dark chocolate, which I also like dark chocolate, but my internal representation would be different to yours. So what we want to do then is change that internal representation. And I do this, so I can give you some examples. So I've done this, I've had it done to me. I used to, when I was learning NLP actually, and we were learning this technique, because you got to interrupt the pattern. You've got to change the state, the internal representation. So for me, I used to have this real soft spot for Arnott's choc mint slice, right? And I had them, I ate them every day, every single day. I would go to the supermarket and I would get, Arnott's choc mint slice, or at least eat them every day. And it was ridiculous. It was just way too many. So we changed it. So when you think of something you love, and then you think of something that is similar texture, but gross. Yeah. So for me, I thought cardboard. I'll change it for cardboard. And when we changed it, every time I thought about Arnott's choc mint slice, I could taste cardboard in my throat. And then before I would just walk into the supermarket and I would see the choc mint slice, like even if it was 8 aisles away, I would just like a beeline for it. Yeah. Once I'd done the process, I didn't feel it. I didn't even think about it anymore. I don't see them anymore. Like even when I'm going down the biscuit aisle, I don't see the choc mint slices. Like it just deleted it out of my internal representation. And I've done it with people, even like a lady to give up Red Bull. We changed it. Seawater made her kind of vomit. So we changed it whenever she thought of Red Bull, she tasted seawater. And another lady, she loved those Red Rock balsamic vinegar chips. And we changed it for cellophane. And I literally just saw her the other day and she's like, I cannot touch them anymore. It's gross. Yeah, wow. So you take whatever it is that you love. I know you probably don't want to get rid of the dark chocolate. So, but if you think of something that you love but wish you didn't love, and now make it gross, like think of someone vomiting on it, or think of someone stepping on it under their shoe or something like that, and then stuffing it into your mouth, like interrupt the pattern, change the internal representation from something that is really, really pleasurable to really, really gross. And you continue doing that every time you think of that food, you continue to interrupt the pattern until you can't get the pleasurable one back again. And there's some NLP techniques, which I do with my clients to help them with it. But at home, you can do it just by grossing yourself out. Like think of someone vomiting on it or urinating on it or something, and then just try and imagine putting it in your mouth once you've done that. And sorry.
Is there a process for, something that you want to, that obviously I think really helps with the elimination. What happens if it's something that you just want to moderate? Is it the same process or is it different process?
You can use the same process to moderate it. Because now, like if I wanted to have a choc mint slice, I could have one and I would enjoy it. Yeah, like I choose not to, because I don't want to go down that path again, but I could and I would enjoy it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And it would just be a very occasional thing now if it happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So would that be changing your internal representation so it's not so severe, so it's not, the seawater, or it's not cellophane, it's cardboard?
Exactly. Because before the external representation of that choc mint slice to me, the external thing, it was just a tiny little biscuit, but in my head, it was this glorious, delicious experience that made me feel so good, right? Totally out of proportion, of course, but that's what any craving is, right? But now, that choc mint slice, when I think of it, it's just a little choc mint slice. I can take it or leave it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get you. And can you skip the internal representation and go straight to changing your state? Does that help? Is that going to be effective long term, or is?
Yes. So different things. So another way is change the physiology. So if you have an anchor, if you have an association that every night when you sit on the couch and you watch Netflix, you eat a tub of ice cream, or you eat a packet of chips, or a 6-pack of beer, or whatever it is that you want to stop doing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so, so then again, it's become this association in your brain. It's become an automatic pathway. Okay. Couch equals junk food and Netflix, right? So so you want to change the physiology, like maybe watching it in a different room, or not watching Netflix for a few nights, or sitting in a different position in the same room, or holding, okay, I'm not going to have the beer, I'm going to hold a cup of tea, so you're changing the physiology. Or if every time I drive home I stop by Hungry Jack's, right, and it just becomes a habit, then drive a different way. Go out of your way to drive a different way home, so you do not see the Hungry Jacks. Even just doing these things really works as you're trying, because it's a pattern interrupt, and you're trying to that wiring, that super highway, you're trying to break it by not reinforcing it, by wiring a different pathway in your brain as you're physically doing something different. Okay,
perfect. I'm just thinking of that mother who's, that witching hour in the afternoon or evening when the kids are really tired and grumpy, and there's so much to do. There's getting dinner ready, it's getting the kids bathed, it's and it could be the wife or husband that has to do this.
Yes.
And that can create a whole lot of anxiety and and all this emotion, and like I often hear that's the time at which they feel like, I need that glass of wine, and that glass of wine becomes 2, 3 in the whole bottle, and it's consumed. What do you recommend in that? Because we can't, in terms of changing the state, it's sort of, well, that's, you're at the kids are at home. Yes, I'm just thinking, well, what would be the best technique for that?
Yes, good question. And I did have this situation recently wasn't recently, but with a client. And she had the same thing. She'd come home, she was tired, she wanted that glass of wine. Simple as that. And so again, we did a pattern interrupt. So before, her habit was drive home, come home, go to the kitchen, get the glass of wine. So instead it was, just go. Instead she chose, and the thing, there has to be what the person wants, because it has to feel right for them. So she chose, I'm going to go to my room instead, and just for 10-15 minutes I'm going to close the door, just lie down and just put on some nice music or meditation or something. I'll just do that. Then I'll go out, and then I will just start doing things. And that was enough to help her, as well as then she didn't have the wine in the house. And we did do a likes to dislikes. So she stopped liking the red wine. She replaced it for something gross. And that was enough. And then she realized that really, because what she really wanted was some rest. The wine equaled rest. And so what's another way that you can get that rest? And she goes, if I actually just close to that kids, see you in 15, close the bedroom door, have a break. And that's another thing too, of actually tuning in. This is another way that I do it, and I use it myself. When I start to notice that I'm overeating, like I used to binge, I don't anymore, but sometimes if I'm stressed, I will overeat. And if I really tune in, it's like, okay, what's going on? What's this about? Like have a little talk with yourself, and just tune in and go, what are the emotions that are triggering me to eat? And so for me, it was anxiety. I was feeling really anxious. And so I tuned in, and this is a timeline technique, or matrix therapies technique. And so I tuned in. It's like, where am I feeling this anxiety? And I was feeling it in my tummy, in my like solar plexus area. And so I tuned into that feeling, and I was like, I asked myself, what is the first event, the first time that I felt this anxiety? And it went back to when I was 4 and when I was in kindergarten. And I was anxious because I was suddenly in kindergarten, like from being home with mum, suddenly I was in kindergarten where the big kids are pushing me out of the sandpit and grabbing the swing off me. And, it was overwhelming for a little 4-year-old.
Yes.
And then, and then I realized, now I'm kind of going through kind of a similar thing. I'm trying to grow my business. So I have to be out there in the world. It's also like putting myself out there into the unknown. And then I was like, okay, well, how can I rewrite that experience? And then I thought, well, when I was at kindy, I ended up loving kindergarten. Like I loved kindergarten. I loved it. I still remember how much I loved it. I even sent my kids to the same kindergarten just because that was such a happy place. And that made me realize, this time, this is actually an exciting time. This is a really good time. It allowed me to rewrite my feelings and rewrite the meaning I gave my current experience. And that helped me to move through it. So it's another way of actually going, what is causing the binge eating? Because it may be a wiring now, but it's triggered by an emotion. And that emotion is the same emotion you felt the first time you started binge eating. So if you can go through that, you can get a lot of insight into what's troubling you, and you can, work through those emotions and rewrite them. And there's techniques that I do with clients one-on-one to actually rewrite those and clear those emotions so that it doesn't trouble them anymore. So that's something that a person can do, and with a journal, journal like what's going on, why am I feeling this, why am I eating, why am I feeling anxious, and just dig deep into getting to the root cause of the problem.
That's really like peeling off the layers of the onion, so to speak, and getting down to that core. Yes,
because it may be, it may feel unexplained, but there is always a reason you're doing it. And there's always a secondary gain, like you might be trying to lose weight, and so, but that sitting on the couch eating the ice cream watching Netflix brings a lot of pleasure. That's, you got to find a different way. Like we're naturally going to gravitate towards pleasure. So we've got to find other ways that we can feel those same feelings, but that's not going to sabotage our goal of weight loss or whatever it is.
Gotcha. So more resourceful ways of doing it. But
and acknowledging that there is a positive intention to our binge eating, right? Which is to feel good. And then find more. And then find more resourceful ways, other ways that you can get that same positive feeling that's not going to sacrifice your goals, because we all want pleasure. We can't just live in misery for long periods of time. And all that, dieting and extreme exercise and that, it can only do it for a certain amount of time before we will bounce back to wanting pleasure.
I was thinking of that type of addiction, actually, like the exercise addiction. So people get really addicted to the endorphins that are released during exercise, and so they just keep going back for it. And that process again is, obviously covering up something that, is a void, or, fulfilling a void, or, something, as you mentioned before in terms of that timeline therapy, that there's something that's making them feel a certain way, and their, I guess, way of dealing with it is getting out and doing exercise.
It's true. It is. Whenever you unpack any kind of extreme activity, even though it seems like oh, exercise, that's a really positive thing, but when it's done to excess, and then it's actually a negative, and then when it's always when you dig down, it's say running away from, but it's covering up some turmoil, inner turmoil inside them. And it's ideally, it's great to be able to actually tap in and heal the inner turmoil so that they can feel more balanced, and then they can still exercise, but just do so in a more resourceful way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see so many ways in which what you teach can be applied for people, you know, with any form of addiction or anything that has taken them way out of balance. You know, they could be addicted to work or their career, and, you know, everything else is suffering as a consequence of that. And so I'm thinking that there's so many fields at which you could apply these techniques and really help the individual achieve that balance.
Definitely. Definitely. And there's always, the beautiful thing is there's always is a solution. You know, I think people feel that they might have tried some things and it hasn't worked. And so they feel, oh, there is no way out. And so I just keep doing this. There's no way I can ever stop binge eating, or there's no way I can ever deal with this inner turmoil. I'll just keep covering it up. But the beautiful thing is there are processes that work quite quickly to heal the underlying causes of these behaviors that the person doesn't want.
That's fantastic, because there's so many times where, you know, people come to me and they say, I've tried this, I've tried everything, you know, and have you really? And I think it really opens up the discussion of, you know, the field of work that you're in, as to, you know, it may not be common knowledge out there that these sort of techniques are available, and they're very successful, and they're proven techniques and very cost effective, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it pays to keep searching and because the answers are out there. Like, whatever, no matter what we're going through, no matter how bad it is, someone else has already gone through it and has come up with a solution. And it may not be, like you say, it may not be well known, but just keep searching, because the answer is out there. Yes.
And given that you shared all this wisdom with us today, and you know, really shown us the way in which NLP and matrix therapies and timeline therapy can really help a person overcome any type of addiction, there's going to be listeners thinking, well, you know, I want to reach out to get this additional help, because, you know, I may be struggling with something. So how can people best get in touch with yourself, Sonya?
Yes, well, they can get in touch either through my website, centerforlifetherapies.com. And I'm running I run a lot of free events where I give a lot of information and free help. And I'm running one this Sunday at 11 a.m. I'm not sure when you're showing this, actually.
It will go up to tonight. So
tonight, okay, perfect.
Promoting it
so
tonight,
this Sunday,
Sunday,
So this Sunday, 12th of July at 11 a.m., I'm running a free introduction to NLP and matrix therapies, and also I do invite someone up for a free session, kind of like in the session I do a process on someone, so they can have like a free experience of matrix therapies. So that's I could give you the link if you like.
Is it on your website, the centerforlifetherapies.com.au?
Actually, I will put it on there, because it's not. I will put it on there. Yes.
But I'm thinking that could be the call to action is go to your website and I'll be able to jump on the webinar and get an even more insightful understanding of how it can help them. Yeah, and just one, I guess, closing hot tip from you in terms of how people can best manage their mental health.
Yes, great question. For me, I believe that people should continually, like we were saying about searching for answers, like, continue with their personal development, keep,
Yeah.
Do courses, read books, listen to, your podcast and like there's so much wonderful knowledge out there. There's so many people running great podcasts like you do. And I think for mental health, the more you know, the more you can heal and manage your emotional state. And more that you learn the techniques and you understand how much is actually out there to help a person.
Yeah. That's really a constant and never-ending learning process of self-development and self-healing.
It is. And I believe I'm always going for sessions, like I see you, and for, for nutrition. And I'm always seeking out mentors and other coaches ahead of me. And I'm always reading and listening to podcasts and things like that, because you're never there. You'll never get to a point where you know everything. There's always more to learn and more to understand. So I think that's a wonderful way. And I know it helped me. The more I learn and the more I invest in my personal development, the better my mental health has become. 100%.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic tip. And really appreciate your time today, Sonya.
Thank you.
Sharing the knowledge about NLP and how it can help emotional binge eating. And I really thoroughly recommend to the listeners and viewers that, if you need of help to break an addiction, Sonya is the person to go to. I personally know Sonya, and she gets amazing results. I've heard a lot of positive testimonials, success stories, people in tears because she's changed their lives. So really recommend you visit the centreforlifetherapies.com.au and get in touch with
just .com.
.com. There you go.
Yes, but please visit it. Yes.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Sonya. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Anthony. Thanks so much. Lovely to be on your show. Thank you.
Pleasure.